Have you ever thought about growing your own groceries in your yard or patio but don't know where to begin? Or think that you have a black thumb? I'm Greg Peterson, founder of Urban Farm Podcast and Urban Farm U. If you're listening, you probably already know that my mission in life is to inspire and empower people around the world to improve their family's health and reduce their environmental impact by growing their own delicious, nutritious, pesticide-free food. I'm here with Kari Spencer today, and together we have helped tens of thousands grow their own edible gardens. And we're at it again with a new free webinar coming up called 3 Simple Steps to Grow Fruits, Veggies, and a Healthier Life.
We are so excited about this free webinar. You'll learn how to find the right space for your garden, how to decide what to plant and when, why soil is your most important asset, and secret gardening hacks we've learned from decades of experience that will make your food growing journey a whole lot easier. Will you join us in co-creating the food revolution? Just text GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org to sign up for this free webinar. That's GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org.
You're listening to the Urban Farm Podcast, your partner in the Grow Your Own Food revolution. Whether you've just been introduced to urban farming or you're a lifelong advocate, we're sure you'll leave feeling more informed, equipped, and empowered to dig deeper into the soil of your local food economy. With you every step of the way, here's your host, Greg Peterson.
Today on the Urban Farm Podcast, I'm very excited to bring you part 2 with singer-songwriter Jason Mraz to talk about his experience with music, planting trees, and taking urban farming on the road. Jason is a 2-time Grammy winner, singer-songwriter, and an urban farming enthusiast. He has been backyard homesteading for the past 5 years and currently owns and operates a 10-acre subtropical fruit orchard where he grows avocados, coffee, and 25 other varieties of fruit. He believes a connection to farmers and the origin of our food itself can empower a person to live a happier, healthier, eco-friendly, and more economical life. And he loves driving his tractor. Welcome to the show today, Jason.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. I love that you're here and contributing to the conversation. Thank you. I want to know, how do you find time to be a songwriter, touring artist, and a farmer?
Well, I make time, first of all, and it might drive my managers crazy because I do spend a lot of time on the farm, as they call it. Mm-hmm. But I make it as part of my personal practices. Oh, very good. You know, like I wake up and I have a practice of yoga that gets my body ready. But I also have a practice of going and checking on my little melon sprouts that are starting, my squash sprouts that are starting to come up that I'm getting ready for the summertime. And then I make sure I water them, and I practice going down to check on my chickens and make sure their food and water's good and get their eggs. It just becomes part of your daily routine. And so I try to, between morning and say 11 a.m., I make sure I do my rounds with the garden and check on the farm. I do have a manager that helps me manage the coffee farm and the avo trees. And I check in with him because, I do have to write checks, and I want to know what I'm spending and the different applications we're doing. And, I just want to stay clued into that. And then by 11, 12 o'clock, I go and I open my studio and I start writing. And what I get from my morning activities, the peace of mind and the deep breaths that I get and the love that I get from all the green trees and the plants and the chickens and nature, it gives me strength and it gives me ease as I work on music. And then I work on music till dinner time, and it's a great life. Now when I travel, that's the season where I have to take my music, which is something that I've nurtured and grown. That's when I take it to market. I go out and I play concerts and I promote my music, and that's just like what I would do if I harvested something and took it to the market. It's ready to go. I do get a little sad that I have to leave the farm, but when I do that, when I leave, I get to employ my friends. I get to employ a community of like-minded stewards and foodies who come to my farm, who work. And I love that, rather than live out here alone and be totally isolated. I attract other people who want to be close to nature, who want to put their hands in the soil. And so I'm able to do it all because I share it. It's like we have a little village and a little community all centered around food and urban farming.
When you're suburban, there you go. You're taking that out on the road too. So you started your foundation.
Yes.
And a big part of what you do on your foundation is you expand your garden experience out in the world.
Exactly.
Can you tell us about that? Because it's really cool.
Thank you. I honestly did it. It's funny. I honestly did it for selfish reasons, because I would hit the road and I'd feel I'd go through withdrawals of wanting to be close to home, being close to my farm. And I have to do these promotional events when I'm on the road, which in the past would be me at a radio station or at a coffee shop and playing songs.
Right.
And people would gather. We would gather 40 to 100 people at a time. And so I said, hey, why can't we all meet at a park and go plant some trees? Or why can't we all meet at a school and go plant some trees? Let's use these gatherings of volunteers and see if we can go do some good. So we started to do that. We started to change our promotional events into gardening events.
Nice.
Where we might help other local organizations who are already urban farming, who are already doing community gardens. We would basically step in and say, hi, we'd like to help. I can bring 50 people. What can we do? And that gave us a chance to connect with people all over the world.
Right.
And lend a hand. And then my foundation steps in to basically pay for supplies or to help launch certain gardens that these organizations were doing, or to help stay committed to certain tasks after we left.
Right. How does that make you feel?
Oh my gosh. I tell you, on the days that I have those garden days, the nights that I play the show are the best nights ever. Wow. Best nights.
Yeah.
There's just such an energy I get from having A, garden, B, made a difference, C, surrounded myself with like-minded people. You just get such an energy there. And then you go play a show, like all that joy comes out in the music.
Oh my gosh, I'll bet.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah.
So you also have included tree plantings. Why did you decide to do trees, and what's that look like?
So the tree plantings came about because I looked at my carbon footprint, and when I was at home, I'm like, oh wow, I'm carbon negative. We're
right.
way good here. Our house is solar, and the way we do things is great. But on the road, I have the biggest carbon footprint of anybody that I know. And so I needed to do something to offset that. So I came up with my own little calculation that I would plant 1 tree for every domestic flight that I took, and then 5 trees for every international flight.
Wow.
And then I would multiply that by the amount of people I was traveling with. And in each year, it seems like I needed to plant about 2,000 to 3,000 trees.
Wow.
And decided that I would do that as part of our, garden and foundation events on tour. At the end of the touring year, we're lucky if we could plant, 150 trees.
Right.
So to make up the difference, I would make donations to other reforestation programs around the world so that I could plant those trees to offset my carbon. And it was a blast. So we would do these tree planting events, on a tour day, while we're out in the world somewhere. And my foundation would make the purchase of, maybe 40 trees or 70 trees, or sometimes only 10 trees. It just depended on what we could find in the community that they needed. It also depended on the time of year, because in some places, like Austin, when we were in Austin, Texas, it wasn't the right time to plant a tree. It was like 130 degrees or something. So we would end up, maybe doing some deep root aeration and adding some food to the trees, and just helping those trees thrive that were already there, working with tree organizations in Austin. So it was a way for me to offset my carbon and to still have some fun. And one of the biggest payoffs for me, and it happened every single time we did these events, is that at least one person, and it was usually more, but at least one person would say, I have never done this before, and I want to do it again.
Yeah.
And that's what mattered to me, is that these volunteers were coming in who had never put their hands in the soil and planted a tree. And now those trees live in their community, and they can go back to that. They can drive by that elementary school, or they can visit that park where we planted these trees, and they can see what they did. And
Right.
they can one day take their children there and sit under that tree and be connected to nature in a profound way. And those trees will outlive us. And I think that's a really honorable legacy.
Yeah. How cool is that? So, and not just in this country, in other countries as well. And you converted a parking lot into a garden in South Africa?
Yes. So there was a pharmaceutical company in Johannesburg that some of the employees decided that they wanted to turn the adjacent land, which was just this like an old dirt gravel parking lot.
Right.
They wanted to convert it into a garden, and they did. And they have all these different types of grow beds, and it's just beautifully yet some kind of chaotically arranged. These different grow beds, different gardens that we helped put some plant material in, and we just helped with their daily activities, basically, of cycling plants through, because they feed about 10,000 people, or it has fed about 10,000 people at that time, of nearby homesteads to this pharmaceutical company.
Whoa.
And so I just thought it was really a really nice gesture that this company wanted to do with their land, so it feeds their employees and the nearby families to this factory. And the people who were working there were so happy, because it also gave jobs to people.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a little bit outside of our comfort zone, being next to this huge factory, but it really did demonstrate urban farming and how it could bring happiness. It can bring tons of food, how it can bring transformation and recovery to the environment. It was sort of everything you want in urban farming. It was right there happening. It was cool.
Perfect. So I'm going to shift on you now. And I want to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you learned from it.
Besides the pizza story of composting with pizza, the times that we have consistently failed is when we've planted too much of something.
Oh, yes.
That we just couldn't keep up with it. Like, I think, the first time we were planting for ketchup, we probably planted 30 or 40 tomato plants in a very small area. And then I left for tour.
Oh my gosh.
So my gal was pretty much left with a small army of friends and neighbors trying to keep up with these tomatoes, and it really was just too much.
Oh yeah.
It was too much. It was too much product, too much tomato, too many vines. It was just way too big, too hard to handle. At the same time, my roommate probably planted about 30 yellow crookneck squash.
Oh my gosh.
Which, if you've ever planted those, you probably only need one.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
It's such a prolific plant. So we just had this overgrowth of tomato vines. We had this overgrowth of these squash vines that would continue to come back the next year and the next year, because we couldn't keep up with them. They went to seed. And I'll add this too. We also planted mint in our garden.
Oh my gosh.
Which, if you know anything about mint, you probably don't want to plant. You definitely don't want to plant it in your garden.
Yep.
It's very aggressive, and
put it
it
in
will
pots.
come back forever.
Yeah.
So those three things happening simultaneously, it just created a little bit of chaos. You couldn't walk in the garden. When I would come home, it looked kind of beautiful, but you couldn't manage it.
Yeah.
And so that was when I would say we began to notice we should plant less and less. It still took us a couple of more summers to get it under control and to figure it out. We're still pulling mint out of the garden today. Like we've got it to where it kind of stops inside the fence line, but we still have to manage it on a regular basis. So I would say the mint, squash, and tomato debacle of 2011, 2012 was probably our biggest mistakes that we're still trying to recover from.
Oh, perfect. And what do you consider your biggest success?
I like to thank the person that I was 5 years ago for planting what I planted. In fact, I was gifted a guava tree back in 2007, 2008. And I planted it outside of my studio. And every December, January, this guava tree just explodes with fruit. And it's actually two different kinds of guavas grafted onto it. And it is so wonderful and so tasty. And I started to taste this fruit probably around 2011 was when it first started to fruit. And around that same time, I planted a few loquat trees around my studio because I was drinking this loquat syrup for my singing. And Scott Murray, our friend, mentor, farmer, he recommended that I should plant some loquat trees and maybe one day I can make my own syrup. And I like to think the person I was 5 years ago in 2011 because today I have so many loquats.
Probably right now, right?
Right now, outside of my studio, I've got these beautiful loquats, and I've got two other trees that are just starting to ripen. And if you've ever had a loquat, it's like an apricot meets a mango. It's just so sweet and juicy, and it has these really smooth, beautiful seeds inside that are almost like beautiful little stones that have been polished by the sea. Yeah,
that's a great way of saying it.
It's a magical fruit, and so those, for example, are just some of the varieties that are starting to ripen around my property. And I like to think who I was 5 years ago because had I not planted those trees, I wouldn't be having this experience today.
Yeah.
And so I feel so successful today when I eat these loquats because I took the time to plant them and be patient as they grew and feed them each year and allow them to grow. And I visit some people's homes that, they live in neighborhoods where it's just lawns and a couple of bushes in front of their house. And I say, hey, you ever thought about growing fruit trees? They're like, oh, I don't know. It's enough to cut my grass. I was like, oh man, it's totally easy. Like once you do it, they just do it. And I'm all excited about fruit trees.
Right.
Like, you can believe me, like you can grow. I pretty much described the urban farm. I'm like, you can grow a whole hedge right here and kind of give yourself some privacy, and your neighbors can eat some of it, and blah blah blah. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like telling you, man, if you start now, they'll grow up with your children. Like your children will grow up with these trees.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And they'll eat, a lot of my friends have babies, I was like, by the time these kids are 4 or 5 years old, they'll be able to eat from these trees. By the time they're 10, they'll just be loving these trees. Like they'll be best friends with these trees. And so to me, I truly feel the most successful because these trees are blooming every year.
Yeah.
And I know that everybody lives in a different area. So I do, when I'm in Tennessee, I'm like, find out what grows here. I bet you guys can grow some really delicious apples here. Like I highly, highly recommend adding fruit trees to your landscape. So I feel my success is in my fruit trees. I really do.
And I love that. So thank you for that.
Well, you helped give me the idea, man.
All
you
right,
did.
cool.
You did. Thank you.
Cool. So what drives you?
What drives me? I'm not ashamed to admit it right now. My wife drives me. That I love because I want my garden to thrive. I want, and now actually we have some really great neighbors that we're sharing one of our garden spaces with.
Oh, nice.
And I'm growing some summer melons, and my neighbor asked specifically for spaghetti squash. She loves that. So I've got a couple of spaghetti squash going. So having my wife and my community to serve drives me.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, I'm not ashamed also to admit that I'm a little driven by money right now. And what I mean by that is avocados have been failing for the last couple of years. I've been spending thousands of dollars a year on labor, on water, and on consultation to really make my ranch the best it can be and to be organic. And I'm driven by, I want to be on the plus side again. I'm in the negative right now because of all the investing. I'm driven by, I want to be on the plus side again. I want to see this little small farm that we are. I want to see it succeed, and I want it to succeed because I want to inspire my neighbors, and I want to inspire young farmers with a model on how we can do it here. So it's probably not great to be inspired by the money thing, but I'm driven. It's a game. Yeah. It's a game for me.
Well, and I might propose that it's really not about the money. It's about having a prosperous space. And
sure.
Rather than, and part of it is that you're going to make money selling the products that you grow. Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. I think so, and thank you for turning me on to that word prosperous, because I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to pay for the water. I want to be able to pay for those that I employ. Basically, I want it to sustain itself, because at the moment my credit card sustains it. But that's because we're in a time of transformation.
Exactly.
I had to buy a lot of coffee trees, and it takes a lot of labor to get those things going. But things are looking up. Things are looking good.
And remember, in a sustainable system, it's environment, economics, and the third pillar is, my brain just went blank, but there's a third pillar. And you got to have a balance in all three of those.
Exactly.
Social, environment, financial, and social. And in order to have a truly sustainable system, all those have to be balanced. So.
Exactly. Well, that's what we're going for here.
Yeah. Good. So I'm all about education, and I have to know what one book has been influential in this process for you in your life.
A big sort of eye-opening book was this book called The World Without Us by Alan Weisman.
Oh my God!
And
powerful book.
Do you know this book? Oh,
I absolutely know this book.
And I probably read this around 2006, 2007, right when I started to be a little more health conscious and I wanted to have my own garden. Maybe the book kind of helped me decide I wanted my own garden. But anyway, it's a look at our planet if all the humans just disappeared.
Right.
He's like, don't ask why, who cares? Let's just imagine all the humans are gone. What would the planet do? What would the future look like?
Right.
Everything from plastics to our energy systems like nuclear and the oil systems, all of our water works, how the migration of animals will be and is affected by the fencing that we put up.
Oh yeah.
By the highways that we've built. In addition to obviously the pipelines and things. Yeah. And it was just so fascinating that it really made me look at my backyard differently and the impact that I could have on my backyard. And it made me realize the how you can change the world by focusing on your backyard.
Yeah.
I think the idea of being an environmentalist can be overwhelming if you think you personally are responsible for saving the rainforests. But if we look at the products that we buy, they do have a ripple effect back to that rainforest. Yeah. If we look at how we treat our backyard with either the products that we use in our backyard, such as the Roundup or the other weed killers or the certain seeds we buy, all those have a ripple effect on the planet outside of our backyard. The way we treat our backyard matters, or front yard or side yard. This is urban farm we're talking about. And then if we can inspire our next door neighbor to do something similar, then they will inspire their neighbor, and so on and so on and so on. Then we really can impact the planet as a whole. So that book, The World Without Us, really gave me a better idea of sort of a photograph of the world right now, and already the huge impact we've had, and already what our legacy is, and the kinds of things we need to think about to remediate that, or to mitigate that, I guess, that impact. Yeah.
Cool. What one final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
Final piece of advice. Well, I said earlier, just start.
Yep.
Just get started. If you live in an apartment, try sprouting. I love sprouts.
Yeah.
There's a debate on sprouts, there's a whole debate on raw food, on whether or not, but I'm not even interested in the debate, because I just love the taste of sprouts.
Yeah.
And sprouts, you don't need direct sunlight. It helps. But to get them sprouted, you can really do it the first 3-4 days in the dark. And then after that, I just put them near a window, and they start to turn green. And within 7 days, you've got this beautiful, thick, full tray of sprouts. I even do sprouts on my tour bus. It's that easy.
Oh, of course.
And so,
wow.
And I think sprouting is a really cool way, especially for people starting, to just learn how to get into the habit of caring for something that's growing.
Oh, yes.
And it's right there in your kitchen. It's about the size of an iPad. It doesn't take a whole lot of space.
Yeah.
And there's a whole variety of sprouts out there that you can eat that are delicious. You can sprout some chickpeas and make hummus within 5 days.
Oh my gosh.
Very, very cool stuff. So yeah, just get started. What else? Plant a tree. If you have the opportunity to plant a tree in your life, do it. And why not make it a fruit tree? Because that is going to be so fun. Visit your local nurseries, see what's growing on. That'll help give you an idea of what you can grow, because the nursery is in your area. Odds are you can grow it too. Visit a farmer's market. I'm giving you more than one piece of advice.
No,
but
please bring it.
To me, I make up that there's going to be all different levels of people listening.
Yes.
People that are veterans and people that are just starting out. But go visit your farmers markets, see what they're growing. Just try something, see what's growing that you've never seen before, and maybe that'll awaken something in you, but just get out there and try and try again.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your experience with us today, Jason. It has been a treat to chat with you.
Dude, it's an honor for me, because I'm still a student at this. I really am. But it's an honor for me to share it, because most of the time I'm talking music and I don't get a chance to share my other passion, which is watching things grow and eating tasty food.
Nice. So where can our listeners get more information?
Well, at the moment, everything's from me still comes through my Facebook, my Jason Mraz Facebook. You can find me on Facebook.
Perfect.
I'm also on the Instagram. Occasionally I'll post pictures from my garden. Occasionally I'll post something that I might be harvesting, my different avo varieties or the loquats or et cetera. So in fact, sometimes I probably post more garden stuff than I do music related stuff.
I love that.
And eventually we will probably have an official farm site or a farm social. But for now, everything's just coming through my Jason Mraz music pages, jasonmraz.com or Facebook or, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Have you ever thought about growing your own groceries in your yard or patio but don't know where to begin? Or think that you have a black thumb? I'm Greg Peterson, founder of Urban Farm Podcast and Urban Farm U. If you're listening, you probably already know that my mission in life is to inspire and empower people around the world to improve their family's health and reduce their environmental impact by growing their own delicious, nutritious, pesticide-free food. I'm here with Kari Spencer today, and together we have helped tens of thousands grow their own edible gardens. And we're at it again with a new free webinar coming up called 3 Simple Steps to Grow Fruits, Veggies, and a Healthier Life.
We are so excited about this free webinar. You'll learn how to find the right space for your garden, how to decide what to plant and when, why soil is your most important asset, and secret gardening hacks we've learned from decades of experience that will make your food growing journey a whole lot easier. Will you join us in co-creating the food revolution? Just text GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org to sign up for this free webinar. That's GARDEN to 44222 or go to urbanfarmu.org.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen 3 days a week for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.